What is up, New York Giants fans? Thank you once again for tuning in to Tommy's Takes. I'm your host, Tommy G. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with me. And for that, I'm thankful. Please like, subscribe, turn notifications on. You can check me out on Twitter, TommyG105. I'll be bringing the hottest Giants takes all season long. As always, your love and support really goes a long way into getting this content out, and always thankful for that. So, let's get right to it. Preseason game number 1 in the books. Giants come away with a big victory, 23-21 over the Patriots. It was a good game, had some ups, had some downs. Daniel Jones looked pretty solid. All in all, some progress was made. Now Giants are on to game number 2 versus the Bengals. I'm going to talk about 3 players today that I think need to step it up in a big way in that game. First one up is Aaron Robinson. Robinson's had a pretty solid camp for the most part, but first game just got absolutely toasted out there. It was very tough to watch. Gave up 3 catches for 44 yards and a touchdown. Had 2 penalties against him. He had a defensive holding. He had a taunting penalty, which was pretty ticky-tack in my opinion. But still, when you're a cornerback and you're out there getting toasted and you're getting beat off the line and you're a step behind and you can't locate the ball, you cannot have penalties to coincide with that. That is a disastrous recipe. But the positive part of it is he's a young kid. This is only his second season. His first season was kind of a wash. Played mostly in the slot. Missed, I believe, 8 games altogether. So it was tough. So this will be essentially his first main year, like his first full year, knock on wood. But he has to step it up. Giants have Adoree Jackson on the other end who has played very, very well. But it's not going to matter. Teams are not going to have to go after Adoree if they're having success with Robinson. And again, struggling off the line, behind, getting beat. Those are the things a young cornerback can't do. And in a Wink Martindale defense that puts a lot on the cornerbacks. You're put on an island. It's man-to-man press. You're out there. It's tough. It's not easy for these young cornerbacks. Giants have Darnay Holmes in the slot. Cordell Flott is injured, waiting for him to get back. So Robinson has to hold his own. He's going to be out there. Teams are going to attack him. They're going to keep going at him. You're going to see this every single week as you go along. So he needs to step up in a major way. The Bengals have a very good receiving core. T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, it's going to be tough. It's going to be a big challenge for Robinson, but also a great opportunity for him to step up and say, hey, listen, this cornerback 2 spot is mine. I'm here to take it, and this is what I could do. He didn't do that in game 1, though. So, player number 2, Kenny Golladay. The man everyone's talking about. 6-year pro, 4-year, $72 million contract with the New York Giants. Just has not brought in the ROI, the return on investment. Has really struggled. Had a very, very difficult first season with the Giants. 37 catches, 500 yards, no touchdowns. Played in 14 games. He was hurt on and off. His play sometimes was lackadaisical. A couple instances where I saw towards the end of the season where he just didn't lay out for balls. He just made a business decision that he wasn't going to lay out. And that's something the Giants, who are a rebuilding team, cannot have. And Daniel Jones is on his final audition year. Can't have that. You need players locked in. So far, hasn't been great. He had the drop on the goal line in preseason game number 1. The ball was a little bit low. Brian Daboll defended Golladay. I think it was to take a little bit of the pressure off him. Said the throw could be better, and it could have been. But at the end of the day, you're an NFL pro receiver. You're getting $72 million. You need to catch that ball. That would have essentially capped off a 75-yard touchdown drive to start the preseason for the Giants. That would have been huge. Instead, they settle for a field goal. When it comes to Golladay, everybody knows the type of receiver is. He's a 50-50 ball type of receiver. I think it's difficult because he is a big body receiver. He is fairly tall, but he doesn't reach out for the ball. He's a body catcher, so he's not going to catch the ball at its highest point, which takes away an important facet of the game, and it makes it tough because the ball has to pretty much be on point, and they haven't been able to hammer that out. The back shoulder fades haven't been there. I think that he really needs to get his head in the game. I think he maybe last year was upset at the offense. We seen versus Washington where he had words with Jason Garrett or Daniel Jones. And, nobody knows exactly what it was. It wasn't supposed to be Garrett. But either way, wasn't happy. Never really looks happy. Always kind of looks disengaged in my opinion. The 0 touchdowns last year was an eye-opener. And the Giants are in a tough spot. Kadarius Toney once again injured. Looking like he's not going to play versus the Bengals. Darius Darius Slayton has been inconsistent. Colin Johnson has played well, but he had the fumble versus the Patriots. Also had a big fumble last season. Got to hang on to the ball. But at the end of the day, you paid this guy to be wide receiver number one, and it just hasn't happened. And I think all the Giants fans are kind of waiting for that game where he breaks out and he shows that, hey, this is the Kenny Golladay in Detroit. This is the guy that was laying out. This is the guy that was diving all over the field for Matt Stafford passes. But it just hasn't happened yet. And the Giants need it in the worst way. This is a development year. This is a rebuild year. But they need to see it. And Kenny Golladay hasn't brought it in practice, camp, didn't bring it in preseason game number 1, and didn't bring it last year. So a lot of eyes on him for preseason game number 2. We'll see what happens with him. We're going to go back to wide receiver now with Darius Slayton. So this is an interesting one. Slayton has played well in camp, the last few days. He looked okay in the first preseason game. But, when it comes to Slayton, it's like, can you count on him, right? He has the problems with his hands. He had a great rookie year, looked explosive, looked like he could take the top off the defense. Year 2 and 3 was not the same. Struggled with drops. Really didn't make an impact, especially when our other receivers were hurt. Really didn't make an impact there. What do you do? Is this a trade showcase situation for the New York Giants? Showing him in camp, making some tough catches. You kind of feel bad for the kid, as everybody knows. New York Giants fans know this New York Giants offense the last 2 seasons has been broken. Every facet of it, the running game, the passing game, short passing, medium passing. It hasn't been a lot of deep passing. They've had some success, but there hasn't been a lot of it. So you do feel bad for a player like Darius Slayton. And I have particularly been hard on him. But at the end of the day, you're a professional pass catcher, and you can't catch passes, and you're dropping a lot of balls. They're hitting the ground. Not good. That's what got Evan Engram a one-way ticket out of town. Fortunately for Slayton, you have injuries to Tony now. You have the ineffectiveness of Kenny Golladay. Maybe an opportunity versus the Bengals for him to step up. Maybe he gets a couple of big catches, and it goes one or two ways. He could make the team with the Giants, or he could be trade showcased out there. It's going to be tough for him to make the team with the Giants because you have Richie James, had a big preseason game number 1, had a touchdown, couple big catches, also a very good returner. So he's got specials backing him up. Slayton does not. You have Colin Johnson that's played very well in spot duty. So that 5th wide receiver spot's highly competitive right now. And if Slayton wants to come back with the Giants, he needs a big preseason game number 2. Or, you play well and you work out a trade. People have talked about a possible trade to the Bears. Bears needing receiver help desperately. But it's going to be tough. He's a little bit under a $2 million cap hit. I think it was like 1.6, 1.7 the Giants would save. Maybe the Giants say, hey, we're going to cut bait, try to get some O-line depth, some cornerback depth before the season starts. But this is a big game for him. The spotlight is on. The wide receiver spot has not been good for the New York Giants. As I just mentioned, with Kenny Golladay and Kadarius Toney being hurt once again. Huge game for Slayton if he could step up. If he doesn't, he might end up on the chopping block. Possible he could end up with another team once he gets cut. But for him to get traded, I think he needs to have a pretty good performance versus the Bengals. So those are my top 3 players that are in the spotlight next week. Will they succeed? Will they fly? Will they fail? We'll see. Thank you for tuning in to Tommy's Takes. I'm your host, Tommy G. Thank you.